All right, let's get into some. Let's get into working with a DAW. Now, please ignore what type of DAW this is. It can be any DAW that you're using, as long as there is tracks. For example, I have guitar, bass, vocals, drums, and a lead guitar. It could be any combination of different things. The whole idea here is to be able to work on these and separate them. So if you were to look at this in a mixer kind of view, we'll bring up the mixer here, and most DAWs have mixers. Down here you have levels per track, which are the audio levels, and they're all defaulted basically at 0. But as you see the indicators flash up and down with the level of volume that you're receiving per track, you should give each track, to start off, you should let them peak at about the -3 mark here. Don't get them over past up above 0, and that just causes a distortion. So don't push your levels. So select somebody out of your band and have them go through each level and give each instrument a respectable amount of volume per instrument. You know, like for instance, if your drums were recorded really low, you know, punch them up, bring them up a bit, and get their levels up so that they're all comparably the same. Because this is when you're starting with mixing, you should make sure that you can hear everything pretty much equally just to start, and that way it helps you kind of figure out what you want to bring up front or push to the back or whatever. So at first, don't bother touching any of these on the strip here. Don't touch any of the EQ settings on the strip. You just want to have the volume as equal as possible amongst all the instruments for right now, and not peaking above the 0. You want it to be peaking at about the -3, this 3 mark right here. Not the 3 mark above the 0, but the 3 mark below the 0. And most DAWs have the same kind of dial settings here, so you can see that the indicators will start peaking up to 0 and will be showing yellow and red if they're going way above what you should be having them. If you have them above that, it's just going to cause distortion, and you don't want any distortion. It'll be clipping and making a lot of noise, and it just sucks. So make sure all levels of volume are pretty respectable to each other. Okay? Now that your levels are all divvied out, so the guitar, bass, vocals, drums, lead guitar can all be heard kind of equally the same in volume when you play. Although if you were to play it, and if I had tracks actually in here, it would sound muddy as heck. But you know, just keep in mind you're looking at the levels on the indicators to check to see whether or not they are basically all the same within the green, you know, zone of your indicators. Now for each instrument, you're going to first off do a bit of equalizing within the track. And how I end up doing this is going in this way into my plugins, and I'm going to look for a filter. I'm going to look for a parametric EQ. This is a basic parametric EQ, fairly easy to use. And for example, right now we're on lead guitar here. It's been highlighted. So how this works is, for example, like, you pick your point and you give it the designated kind of band curve that you want. For instance, if you wanted to do a low cut, or what's called high pass, low cut, you want to cut the lows, you would use this. You can shelf it as well if that's what you want to do. Shelving can work as well, just to give you a bit of terminology. But I usually just go with a low cut. And with a guitar, lead guitar, you want to listen, and this is what a lot of DAWs kind of separate themselves from. There are DAWs out there, like for example Audacity, which cannot play back at the same time as you are adjusting the levels of your EQ. So unless you have a plugin that you've found which is an EQ, and then you can use that. As far as its natural plugins that come with Audacity, you cannot listen to the track and EQ it at the same time. So if you get a DAW, make sure that you can real time listen to it as it's playing, and you can adjust to see whether or not what you're doing is causing an effect. So when you low cut something, you take a listen to that track and you cut out as much as you can until you start to notice a difference, and then slightly pull it back from that position. Do the same with the high. If you want to try to high cut some extra off of there, you can bring it back as soon as it starts sounding a little different. Say up and pull it back to where it was before, slightly forwards, and you made your adjustment. Don't do anything more than that. Go through each of your tracks. That was for that. The drums, we'll select the drums. We'll basically do the same thing. Go for the parametric EQ, and at 1, make sure you cut a lot of bottom out, and for the very high end, cut some of that out as well. And of course, like the same as the other instruments, pull it in as it starts making a difference in sound. Pull it back out, just slightly back from where it was, and that's your adjustment. Now, it depends on the instruments and everything how much you want to do this tweaking. You can pull it back quite a bit if that's what you want, or if that sounds better. Okay? But right now we're just cutting. So cutting is cutting the high end off and cutting some of the low end off. And that will help demud things, but it won't help everything. So let's get into a little bit more specifics here. Let's say, for example, we've done all this to each one of these. We put a parametric EQ on here. Of course we haven't, but just say, for example, we have. And say that, okay, I go back to my lead guitar here, and we go back to seeing our parametric EQ. And now we have this already set up, but now we want to find the sweet spots in our guitar. So let's take, for example, you can go ahead and take number 3 and pull it up and give it a good, between 5 to 10. Over here, it's showing you how much boost you're applying to in decibels. So give it about 8. Between the 5 and the 10, give about 8 decibels, and play that track and kind of scan it across here to see whether or not there's something in there that you like. So you might find a sweet spot like right here and say, oh, that sounds awesome. That really brings out the guitar and it sounds good. And also keep in mind the Q. The Q will adjust the peak to be a sharper peak or a more rounder selection. So it's selecting the width. So usually, you know, give it a little bit of a squeeze in there of the peak, and you know you can start hearing some cool frequencies that you like. Other ones, as you go along, you'll go, oh, that sounds terrible, or oh, this sounds sweet, you know. So just right now, pick the ones that sound sweet. So if you pick something like, for example, you want something at the above the 1 kilohertz right here, and you tweak the Q just to see whether or not you can, you know, bringing in more of the width of that frequency or less of it makes an appealing difference. And it's all up to you. This isn't, you know, it isn't an exact science, and every instrument's different. Okay, so let's say that this lead guitar sounds really good right here. Now, once you've done that, what I tend to do is play with the master gain. And what I want to do is where that 3 is peaked, I want to bring that 3 level to, as you see, you can move the whole thing up and down. I want to bring that 3 down to where it's right in the middle of the 0 decibel. Okay? I know it's cutting out a lot of stuff, but the thing is, you've got that frequency that you like the best poking out there. And if you're, you know, say you're using another guitar here, and let's go to this guitar here, and we'll go ahead and give it a filter as well, the parametric EQ. And let's quickly do this. You'll see how quickly this goes. You know, you can quickly, you know, chop away at stuff. All right, and say that this guitar, you've got it, oh, you grab the 3 here, and you're like, oh, this sounds sweet over here. All right, and perhaps it sounds even sweeter if it's more peaked like this. Now we use the master gain, bring it down so that the 3 or whichever one you're using is right at the 0 point here. Now you'll see that, you know, we're using this bandwidth here to be the most prominent on this guitar, and the other guitar right here is using this one over here, whereas the other one was well over here. So this helps separate things in the guitars. Now, if, like I said before in the other video, if they share a good set of frequencies here, then set them both up the same, but slightly pan each one left or right. Say we'll have the lead guitar panned a little left and the other guitar panned a little right. And that helps resolve issues with mud and that sort of thing. So it's kind of a quick, easy way to do it. Once you've got everything EQ'd, you've diminished a lot of the level of the sound. If we were to go back to the mixer and you were to listen to the song again, you'll find that these levels have gone down in volume in specific areas. So you'll have to bump those back up slightly a bit to readjust to the levels, respectable levels once again. But this time when you go ahead and hear the tracks all together, you'll notice a definite separation in instruments. So once you have all your levels readjusted so that all the volumes of each track is going back to the green but not above 0, then you're pretty much ready to, you know, you can pretty much have, if everything sounds great, you can go ahead and make a print of this of your song. Or now you can start using the strip here to go ahead and readjust things. You might want, you know, a little bit more, because now you're listening to the instruments together. You might want to go ahead and get more lows, say on your bass or drums, and so you would use this control to kind of, you know, give it a slight adjustment. And that's okay. That works. There's way more to this than what I'm telling you right now. This is not the absolute way of doing things, but it is a quick and easy way to start your way into separating your instruments and getting everything, to the point where, okay, we've got everything separated. We can hear the vocals, we can hear the guitar, we can hear the drums, and everything's working well. We've panned things where they were conflicting, being on the same bandwidth and being in the middle. You can separate them left and right, and everything sounds cool. And you can go ahead and start adding, your special effects and stuff like that, your reverbs, your delays and that sort of thing. But also keep in mind, when you add a delay or reverb, you're also causing a little bit of diminishment on the volume of each instrument as well. So you're affecting that. So you'll have to go back into this mixing console and readjust the levels of the guitar if you're using a lot of delay and reverb, and you need to boost up the volume levels again. Now, there's a lot of talk about loudness, and that comes in later on when you're doing the final mix down. When you're all finished doing your preliminary mix here, and then you want to do the mastering. So when you're doing mastering is when everything gets pumped up and beefed up to a certain level and everything becomes compressed and all that stuff. So that's where that comes in. Although you can do compression and that sort of thing here as well, and limiting. But that's a totally different thing, and that's stuff that you should be going to stuff like Recording Revolution, which is another YouTube. I'll put a link here, and it's a good source of information, free information. And check out Pensato's place, that too. Check what everybody has to say about using different things like compressors and limiters and different effects, and how when you use compressors, they also have a big effect on certain effects like choruses and that sort of thing. They'll make things sound a little bit more nasty, so you might want to reconsider a few decisions on what effects you're using. But this video is just to get you to start separating your instruments and how to do that. So thanks for checking up on this. We'll talk to you guys later.